Listen carefully, because this might offend you, but it will also wake you up. You're not broke because you have nothing. You're broke because you've been trained to think like someone who owns nothing. And the moment you accept that identity, you hand over your power without even realizing it. The truth is harsh. The world doesn't feel sorry for weakness. It studies it, and then it uses it. The second you start looking for sympathy, you're not asking for help. You're signaling that you can be controlled. Before we go deeper, subscribe right now, because what you're about to hear is not motivation, it's strategy. And if you miss it, you stay exactly where you are. You were raised to fear scarcity, told to stay humble, stay quiet, be grateful for less. You were taught to wait, to hope, to pray for something better instead of building it yourself. And while you waited, someone else moved, quietly, strategically. They took what you were told to be patient for. That's how the system wins, not by locking you up, but by programming your mind, not by stealing your money, but by shaping how you think. A long time ago, a man understood this clearly. People are simple, and they respond to what they need in the moment, which means deception always works on those who refuse to think beyond their current situation. And that's exactly where most people stay. Stuck in survival, reacting instead of controlling. The moment your reality depends on approval, you've already lost. The moment you believe your situation is permanent, it becomes your identity. But here's what no one tells you. You can have nothing and still be dangerous. You can be surrounded by lack and still move like you own everything. Because power was never about money. It was always about control. Control over your thoughts, control over your time, control over your emotions. The man who masters those doesn't chase power. He becomes it. So stop saying, "I'm broke." Replace it with, "I'm building." Stop saying, "I have nothing." Start saying, "I don't need anything." Because the second you stop seeing yourself as a victim, the world stops treating you like one. This is not comfort. This is war. And if you're still here, it means you're ready to think differently. Now I want you to do something simple but powerful. Drop this in the comments. My mind is my wealth. Let's go deeper. Poverty doesn't start in your bank account. It starts in your thinking. It's a mental infection, a silent virus that rewires how you see yourself. It teaches you to settle, to obey, to accept less as if it was your destiny. And once that program is installed, the world doesn't even need to control you anymore. You do it to yourself. They call it humility. But most of the time, it's submission. A quiet belief that you were meant to follow, not lead. And that belief spreads into your habits, your words, your posture, until you start shrinking yourself without anyone forcing you to. The real curse isn't lack of resources, it's the worship of limitations. You start convincing yourself that power is evil, success is corrupt, wealth is dangerous, just so you can feel better about not having it. But deep down, it's fear. Fear that you might never reach it, and that fear becomes your master. If you don't destroy weak thoughts, they will destroy your future. Every time you say, "I can't," every time you compare instead of plan, every time you doubt instead of act, you strengthen that mental prison. And understand this, the system is designed this way. It rewards obedience. It punishes independent thinking. The moment you start questioning your position, people label you arrogant. But what they call arrogance is often the beginning of self-respect, because the mind that refuses to bow is the mind that starts to take control. Everything begins with perception. If you see yourself as small, the world will treat you that way. Before you ever speak, your energy already tells people how to deal with you. That's why some people lose everything and still come back stronger, because their mindset was never dependent, while others gain everything and still feel powerless, because they never fixed how they think. It was never about money. It was always about control. Break the pattern. Stop waiting to be saved. No one is coming. And that's not bad news. That's your advantage, because once you accept that, you stop asking for permission. You start moving differently, quietly, intentionally, and slowly. Everything around you starts shifting. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you take your power back. Every time you reject self-pity, you weaken that mental virus. Poverty is not what you have. It's how you think, and only you can remove it. See yourself as dangerous, as capable, as someone who cannot be broken, because the moment your mind refuses to kneel, nothing in this world can truly own you. Drop this in the comments. My mind bows to no one. Now listen closely, because what comes next changes how people see you without you saying a word. Now understand this. The world doesn't reward honesty. It rewards strength, not real strength, perceived strength. Most people fail here because they're obsessed with being understood instead of being respected. But respect doesn't come from explaining yourself. It comes from how you carry yourself. Power is a performance. The way you walk, the way you speak, the way you stay silent. All of it sends signals, and people are always watching, quietly analyzing, measuring your confidence, your tone, your reactions, looking for cracks. The moment they sense hesitation, fear, uncertainty, you lose leverage. That's when you become easy to control. So you must learn this skill. Act strong before you feel strong. Carry certainty even when your mind is full of doubt. Because here's the truth most people ignore. The world cannot clearly tell the difference between real confidence and well-performed confidence. If you look unshaken, people assume you are, and once they believe it, they treat you differently. Most people expose their struggles too quickly. They show their wounds, talk about their problems, explain their fears, but that doesn't create connection. It creates vulnerability. And in a competitive world, uncontrolled vulnerability is a weakness. The powerful do the opposite. They stay composed. Even when everything is falling apart internally, they don't show it. Not because they're fake, but because they understand strategy. They know that once you look defeated, people stop respecting you. And respect, once lost, is hard to rebuild. So never look broken, even when you are. That's not lying. That's control. Wear confidence like armor. Let people attack what they think you are, while you quietly rebuild what you're becoming. Because while they focus on your surface, you're working on your depth. And that's where real power grows. In a room full of noise, be the one who observes. Don't rush to speak. Don't react instantly. Let others reveal themselves first, because the one who speaks last often controls the direction of the conversation. Move slower than others, not because you're unsure, but because you're deliberate. Hold your eye contact longer. Keep your posture steady. Let your presence speak before your words do. Because calmness, especially in chaos, is intimidating. People don't expect it. It breaks their rhythm. It makes them question themselves. And that's where your advantage begins. Weakness is not just physical. It's visible through reactions. If your face shows panic, if your voice shakes, if your emotions take control, you've already lost the psychological battle. But when you stay composed, when your expression remains controlled, people hesitate. They second guess. They start respecting you without knowing why. That's psychological dominance. Confidence is not just belief. It's camouflage. It hides your insecurities and confuses your competition. Use it wisely. Let people assume you know more than you do. Let them believe you have options, connections, strength they cannot see. It's better to be overestimated than ignored, because once people think you're powerful, they treat you carefully, and treatment becomes reality. The world is obsessed with appearances more than truth. That's why people follow confidence, even when it's built on nothing, because confidence feels like certainty, and certainty attracts control. You don't need money to command attention. You don't need status to be respected. You need presence, the way you sit, the way you pause, the way you respond. It all builds an image, and that image decides how people treat you. So build it intentionally. You're not pretending to be powerful. You're training others to see you that way, and once they do, your own mind starts believing it too. That's when everything shifts, because the identity you project eventually becomes the identity you live. Most people act small because they think small. They shrink themselves, avoid attention, doubt their value, and the world responds exactly how they expect. But the ones who act with quiet authority, who refuse to look weak, who control their behavior even under pressure, they stand out. They lead. So from this moment, make a decision. Never present yourself as helpless again. Not in your tone, not in your posture, not in your words. Because the moment you do, the world will confirm it. Drop this in the comments. I perform power flawlessly. Now let's go deeper. Because what destroys most people isn't lack of money. It's something far more dangerous. Now listen carefully, because this is where most people lose everything without even realizing it. The real trap isn't being broke. It's needing people, needing their approval, their attention, their validation. That's the hidden poverty no one talks about. The moment you need someone else to confirm your worth, you lose control over yourself. Most people aren't chasing success. They're chasing acceptance. They want to be liked, understood, appreciated. But that need becomes a leash. And once someone holds that leash, they can pull you in any direction they want. That's the trap. Because when your emotions depend on others, your identity is no longer yours. You start explaining yourself too much, over-talking, oversharing, trying to make people get you. But every extra word slowly reduces your power. It reveals insecurity. It shows that you're seeking approval, not commanding respect. The powerful don't operate like that. They understand something most people ignore. Silence is control. When you stop explaining, people start wondering. When they start wondering, they start paying attention. And attention, when combined with uncertainty, creates respect. Because people fear what they cannot fully understand. Weak minds always try to be seen. Strong minds make themselves felt without saying much. Look at it closely. The more predictable you are, the easier you are to control. If people can read your emotions, your reactions, your intentions. They can manipulate you. But when you become unreadable, everything changes. You stop reacting instantly. You stop showing everything you feel. You stop making your emotions public. And suddenly, people don't know how to deal with you. That uncertainty is power. The average person confuses noise with strength. They think talking more makes them look confident. But in reality, it does the opposite. It exposes doubt. It shows they're trying too hard. Real strength is quiet. It doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't need to convince anyone. It simply exists. And people feel it. Every time you beg to be understood, you lower your value. Every time you explain your pain, you give away leverage. Because now people know exactly where you're weak. And where you're weak, they can control you. So learn to hold back. Not everything needs to be said. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Not every emotion needs to be shown. Restraint is power. When you walk into a room, carry yourself like you owe nothing to anyone. No explanations, no justifications, no need for approval. That energy alone shifts how people treat you. Because people don't respect those who seek validation. They respect those who don't need it. The truth is, validation feels good in the moment. Likes, compliments, attention. They give you a temporary high, but over time, they weaken you. They make you dependent, and dependency is the opposite of power. Every time you rely on someone else to feel worthy, you give them a piece of your control. Break that pattern. Be okay with being misunderstood. Be okay with not being liked. Because real influence always creates resistance. You cannot be powerful and universally loved at the same time. So choose carefully. Choose respect over approval. Choose mystery over exposure. Choose control over comfort. Stop explaining your moves. Stop defending your decisions. Let people think what they want, because the less they understand you, the harder it becomes to manipulate you. And that's where your advantage grows. Now let's go even deeper, because the next level is where everything shifts internally. Thinking like a king. This has nothing to do with money, status, or position. It's about mindset. It's about how you see yourself. Even when you have nothing, most people wait to feel worthy. They think once they have money, success, recognition, then they'll act confident. But that's backwards. The powerful act first, and reality follows. When you move like you matter, people start treating you like you do. When you carry yourself with control, people hesitate to disrespect you, because perception creates reaction. Every movement you make, every word you speak, every pause you take, it all builds an image. And that image becomes your identity in the eyes of others. So build it deliberately, even if you have nothing. Act like your time is valuable. Act like your attention is limited. Act like your presence matters. Because once you start moving that way, people feel it, and they adjust. Control your tone. Keep it steady, never rushed, never desperate. Control your body language. No nervous movements, no unnecessary reactions. Control your emotions, not by suppressing them, but by directing them. That's real power. The man who controls himself doesn't need external validation. He doesn't need to prove anything. His presence alone does the work, and that presence cannot be ignored. Most people panic in chaos. They rush, react, make emotional decisions, but the one who stays calm, who observes, who waits, becomes the center of control. Because calmness in pressure signals authority, So stop chasing, stop rushing, stop trying to prove yourself. Move with intention. Move like you already know your worth. Even if no one else does yet, because eventually, they will. Drop this in the comments. My silence speaks power. Now get ready, because the final part is where everything sharpens, where you become truly dangerous. Now we reach the final level, and this is where everything changes permanently, because at this point, it's no longer about motivation. It's about transformation. If you've made it this far, you already understand something most people never will. Power was never outside of you. It was always internal. A man who has nothing to lose is dangerous. But a man who behaves like he already owns everything is untouchable. That difference is everything. One reacts to life. The other shapes it. Most people wait for conditions to improve before they change how they act. They think, when I get money, I'll be confident. When I succeed, I'll be strong. But that mindset is the reason they stay stuck. Because life doesn't reward waiting. It rewards behavior. If you act like you're powerless, life will confirm it. If you act like you're in control, life will respond to that too. This is where thinking like a king begins. Not in wealth, not in status, but in perception. A king doesn't wait for permission. He doesn't ask the world to validate him. He simply carries himself like he belongs at the top. Even when everything around him says otherwise. That energy cannot be faked for long, because eventually it becomes who you are. So even when you have nothing, your presence must say something different. Your posture, your tone, your silence, all must reflect control, because people believe what they see more than what they're told. When you walk into a room, don't rush, don't seek attention. Observe first. Understand the environment before you interact with it. Kings don't react to the room. They study it. That patience alone creates authority. Speak only when necessary, and when you do, speak with certainty. Not loudness, not aggression, but calm precision. Every word should feel intentional, because certainty commands attention. The world respects men who don't over-explain themselves. The more you justify, the smaller you appear. But when you remain composed, even in silence, people start filling in the gaps with respect. That's psychological influence. Dark psychology isn't about harming others. It's about understanding how perception shapes reality. People follow what feels stable. They avoid what feels unstable. So if you become the most stable presence in any environment, you naturally become the center of influence, even without trying. Kings understand something simple. Emotions are expensive. Every unnecessary reaction drains power. Every emotional outburst weakens control, so they conserve energy. They choose when to respond and when to stay silent. That silence is not emptiness. It's authority. And here's the truth most people never accept. You don't need anything external to carry yourself like power. No money required, no validation needed, just discipline. Control your thoughts, and you control your direction. Control your emotions, and you control your decisions. Control your body language, and you control perception. That is real wealth, because a man who controls himself is never truly poor. Life will test you. It will strip things from you. It will put you in situations where you feel powerless. But those moments are not your downfall. They are your training ground. Every struggle is shaping your identity. Every setback is building your awareness. Every moment of pressure is revealing who you are when nothing is easy. Most people break there. But you won't, because now you understand something deeper. Kings are not created in comfort. They are forged in chaos. Pressure doesn't destroy them. It defines them. So when life gets hard, don't collapse mentally. Don't speak defeat into existence. Don't act like a victim. Stand still, breathe, observe, and move smarter. That is how dominance is built. Stop saying you are broke. Stop saying you are stuck. Stop identifying with limitation. You are not your situation. You are your response to it. And your response determines everything. You are not weak. You are not behind. You are not finished. You are unshaped power, still forming into something stronger. And once you fully understand that, nothing can control you again. So move like you own your fate, even before it reflects in your reality. Because eventually, it will. Now prove it to yourself. Like this video to lock in your mindset. Share it with someone who still thinks they are powerless. And subscribe, because this is only the beginning of the war against limitation. And finally, drop this in the comments. I own my fate. This is not the end. This is your beginning.